In a forgotten corner of the world, where roads were nothing more than dust and houses no bigger than a single room, lived a girl named Amina. She was only 15, but hardship had carved lines of adulthood across her young face. Her father was a farmer, but the earth betrayed him. The rains no longer came. Her mother roasted groundnuts by the roadside, her hands blackened from fire and smoke. And Amina? She had a shop. Not a real shop. No walls, no shelves, no doors. Just a wooden table under the shade of a neem tree. From sunrise to sunset, she sat there, calling out to neighbors, trading coins as if they were gold. Every coin she earned, she tucked into a rusty tin box, her treasure chest. But that evening, when she was packing up her little table, something unusual happened. She heard it. A sound that didn't belong. At first, she thought it was the wind. Then she froze. It was a cry, not of play, not of laughter, but of desperation. Her hands shook as she clutched her tin box, debating if she should run home or pretend she hadn't heard. The elders always warned of spirits, voices in the night that lured the innocent away. But Amina couldn't ignore it. Something inside her pulled her forward. Step by step, across the dirt road. Step by step, into the tall grass. The cries grew louder, each one sharper than the last, until she reached the edge of the village, beneath the old baobab tree. And there, in the dirt, lay a bundle, wrapped in torn fabric, still, fragile, waiting. Amina's chest tightened. Her breath stopped, for inside that bundle was a baby. Abandoned, alone, crying for someone, anyone, to listen. And in that moment, the girl who had nothing became the one chosen to protect everything. They called her Amina, a girl most villagers walked past without a second glance. Her feet were bare, her dress patched more times than anyone could count. And yet, behind her quiet eyes was a spirit that refused to break. But who was Amina? Why did she live alone when every other child had a family? Why did people whisper when she walked by? Her story began years earlier. Both her parents were taken by a sickness that swept through the village one rainy season. One day, she had a mother who sang her to sleep. The next, silence filled the small mud hut. She was only 7, too young to understand death, but old enough to feel the sting of abandonment. The villagers pitied her for a time. But pity fades quickly in a place where everyone struggles to survive. Soon, whispers turned to laughter. Children mocked her torn clothes. Mothers warned their sons not to play near her hut. Even elders, men and women who should have offered guidance, turned away. But Amina, she learned to fight hunger with determination. Every morning, she would run to the bush to collect firewood, sometimes with thorns cutting into her feet. She sold it for a few coins at the dusty roadside. And when firewood was scarce, she swept village courtyards or carried water for people who would barely look her in the eye. The coins she earned? Barely enough for scraps of yam, or a small bowl of watery porridge. Some nights, she went to sleep with nothing but the sound of her own stomach. And yet, she never begged, never stole. She carried herself with a dignity that only comes from deep pain. But fate had a plan for her. Because one ordinary morning, Amina would stumble upon something that would change her life forever. But the question is, why was she the one to find it? Was it chance? Or destiny? Sit down, stay with us, and subscribe. Because what happened next, the world would not believe. The night had fallen heavy over the small village. The stars glittered above, but the air felt different, too quiet, almost unnatural. Amina lay on her thin mat inside her hut, her stomach empty, her eyes still stinging from the villagers' cruel laughter earlier that day. Then, she heard it. Faint, distant, a sound that did not belong to the night. A cry, a child's cry. At first, she froze. Could it be real? Or was the night playing tricks on her? She thought. The sound came again. Louder this time. Desperate. Fragile. A newborn. Somewhere in the darkness. Her heart pounded. The elders always warned, the night hides more than shadows. Sometimes, it hides traps. But what if it wasn't a trap? What if a child was out there, alone, dying? Amina rose to her feet, barefoot on the cold earth. She hesitated at the edge of her hut, then stepped into the unknown. The village was asleep. Only the moonlight guided her steps. Her heart raced as the cries pulled her deeper into the bush. The sound grew clearer, sharper, unbearable. A child. Alone. Amina stopped. Her breath caught in her throat. There it was. A baby, trembling, fragile, abandoned. For a moment, fear gripped her. Was someone watching? Was this a cruel trick of the night spirits? But then, the baby's weak hand reached out. And in that instant, every fear inside her vanished. Without thinking, she scooped the child into her arms. It was small, so fragile that she felt it could break in her hands. The baby's cries softened. For the first time that night, silence felt safe. And yet, she whispered to herself, who would leave a child out here? And why? What Amina did not know was that this was no ordinary child. This tiny life carried the blood of kings. But when she tore a piece of the bread she had been saving and softened it in warm water, she pressed it gently to the baby's lips first. The baby drank, then fell asleep in her arms. And for a moment, as she looked at the peaceful face nestled against her chest, Amina forgot her own hunger. She forgot the stares, the whispers, the judgment. All she felt was the fragile heartbeat against her own. In that moment, Amina's life changed. Poverty still sat at her table. Hunger still slept on her mat. But love, reckless, inconvenient, dangerous love, had chosen her. And she did not resist it. Far away from the dusty paths of the village, where Amina struggled for survival, stood the great palace. Its walls were tall, carved from stone, with guards patrolling the gates night and day. To the outside world, it was a place of power, wealth, and unshakable peace. But inside those walls, shadows moved. The king and queen had just welcomed a daughter, the hope of the kingdom, the light of their old age. The celebration echoed with drums, songs, and dances. Every villager cheered, believing the child would grow to inherit greatness. Yet in the corners of the palace, whispers carried darker news. Greedy men, jealous of the throne, conspired to wipe out the royal bloodline. To them, a newborn was not an innocent child, but a threat. And so, late one night, when the palace torches burned low, assassins crept through the silent halls. But one loyal servant, a woman who had raised the queen herself, heard the footsteps, the steel of blades drawn in the dark. She knew she had only moments to act. With trembling hands, she wrapped the crying baby in a royal cloth. The queen, in tears, whispered, "Save her, even if it means she never knows who she is." The servant fled, heart pounding, carrying the child into the forest. Branches tore at her arms, shadows chased her every step. Behind her, the assassins followed, ruthless men who would stop at nothing. When she realized they were closing in, she faced the cruelest choice of her life. Keep running and be caught with the child, or hide the baby, hoping someone kind would find her. And so, in desperation, she placed the trembling infant on the forest floor, wrapped tight in cloth, and whispered, "Forgive me, little one. May God send you an angel." She turned back, leading the assassins away, never knowing whether the child would live or die. But fate had already written another story. Because the crying baby she left behind was the same baby Amina stumbled upon that night. And so I ask you, was it destiny that led a poor, forgotten girl to that forest at midnight? Or was it the hand of something greater? The child was not born of Amina's blood, yet the moment she lifted that baby from the forest floor, she made a choice, one she could never take back. From that night onward, Amina's life became a battlefield. She had nothing. Not enough food for herself. Not enough strength in her own body. Yet somehow, she had to keep this baby alive. By day, she walked from house to house, begging for a little grain, a little milk, anything that could quiet the cries of the infant. At times, a kind woman would drop a handful of rice into her palm. At other times, doors were slammed in her face. By night, she rocked the baby under the moonlight, whispering lullabies through her own hunger. Her stomach growled from emptiness, but still she pressed food to the baby's lips. She skipped meals, day after day, until her body grew weak, but her spirit refused to bend. The village noticed. They saw the child wrapped in cloth, far too fine for a girl like Amina to own. They whispered among themselves, "Where did she find that baby? Whose child is it really?" Some said the child was cursed, sent by spirits to torment her. Others claimed no good would come from raising a child that was not her own. They mocked her, laughed when she stumbled in the market with the baby on her back. Young men pointed, saying, "Even the gods pity her. A beggar raising a beggar." Women gossiped, their words sharp as knives, "She cannot feed herself. How can she feed a child?" Yet through the pain, through the humiliation, Amina held the baby tighter. Every insult she received only made her heart burn brighter with defiance. Because when the child smiled, when her tiny hand clung to Amina's finger, it gave her a reason to rise each morning. But hunger is a relentless enemy. Each passing day, Amina grew thinner. Her bones pressed against her skin, her steps grew slower, her breath heavier. She feared the truth, that one day, her weakness might cost the baby's life. And so, the question lingered, heavy as stone. Would you risk everything for a child that isn't yours? The villagers thought she was foolish. They thought she was cursed. But Amina knew something they did not, that the life of this one child mattered more than her own. Yet still, the cruel shadow of hunger followed her every step, and survival was never guaranteed. Seasons passed. Under Amina's frail but determined care, the baby began to grow. Her cheeks filled with color, her laughter carried through the dusty paths of the village. Against all odds, life had taken root. But there was something unusual about this child. On her left shoulder, faint at first, appeared a mark. A shimmer beneath the skin, a strange glow that caught the light of dawn and flickered like fire at dusk. Villagers noticed it, and they whispered. The mark was shaped like a crown. Amina thought it was nothing more than the sign of a strange birth. Yet each time the light touched it, she wondered if the baby truly was like other children. The whispers grew louder. That child is not ordinary. It carries the mark of destiny. Some said it was a blessing. Others swore it was a curse. But Amina, she didn't care what they called it. She only cared that the child was alive. But beyond the village, beyond the forest, beyond Amina's quiet struggle, another story was unfolding. Far away, in the royal palace, chaos reigned. The king and queen mourned. Their daughter, the only heir, had vanished without a trace. The royal guards scoured the land, riding through villages, searching markets, storming huts. They offered gold for information, punishment for silence. Posters bearing the princess's likeness hung in trading posts. Messengers carried her name on their tongues. The kingdom's future depended on her return. And as the years passed, their search grew desperate. They followed rumors of a mysterious child found in the wilderness. A girl marked with something strange upon her skin. Each clue brought them closer. Each whisper carried them nearer. And all the while, Amina tried to protect the child as best she could. She wrapped her in cloth, covered her shoulder when strangers looked too long. She prayed that no one would see what she saw, that glowing crown, burning like fate itself. Because Amina knew, if the wrong eyes discovered it, the baby she loved as her own could be taken away. And so, the walls closed in. On one side, a village full of gossip and suspicion. On the other, the relentless march of soldiers in search of a missing princess. Amina stood in the middle, one woman, frail, hungry, tired, yet unyielding, holding a secret that could change the destiny of a kingdom. The question was no longer only about survival. It was about truth. How long could she hide the mark of royal blood? The day Amina feared finally came. The sound of hooves thundered on the dry earth long before the riders appeared. Villagers rushed to the roadside. Some curious, others trembling. Dust rose like a storm as the royal guards entered the village. Their armor gleamed beneath the sun, swords at their sides, faces grim and unyielding. The leader raised his voice. By order of the king, we search for the child of royal blood. A hush fell over the crowd. Mothers clutched their children. Men avoided the guards' eyes. Everyone knew what they wanted. Everyone feared what would happen if they found her. And at the edge of the crowd stood Amina, clutching the little girl against her chest. The child squirmed, playful, unaware of the danger surrounding her. Amina's heart pounded. She had hidden the mark for years, covered it with cloth, lied when asked questions, prayed for silence. But now the search had reached her doorstep. The guards moved through the crowd, examining faces, pulling shawls from frightened women, demanding to see the children. One guard's eyes lingered on Amina. He saw the way she held the girl too tightly. He saw the fear written across her face. "Show us the child," he ordered. Amina froze. Her lips trembled. She tried to protest, but the guard's hand was already on the fabric covering the girl's shoulder. And then, it was revealed. The glowing mark. A crown-shaped birthmark, unmistakable in the light. The crowd gasped. Some dropped to their knees. Others backed away in awe and fear. The whispers surged like a tide. "It's her. It's the princess, the lost heir." The guards exchanged looks. Their mission was over. They had found her. But for Amina, it was the beginning of her greatest nightmare. The child, who had known no other mother, was pulled from her arms. She screamed, reaching back for Amina, her tiny hands grasping at the air. Amina fell to her knees, begging, her voice breaking with desperation. "Please, please don't take her from me. She is my child. My blood, my life." But the guards did not listen. To them, she was nothing more than a poor villager who had sheltered the royal heir. The child's cries pierced the air as they carried her away. Amina followed, stumbling, clutching at the hems of soldiers' cloaks, her face streaked with tears. The villagers stood still, some pitying her, others relieved it was not their burden. By sunset, the palace gates loomed before them. Amina and the child were dragged inside, surrounded by towering walls and watchful eyes. For the first time, Amina saw the world her daughter truly belonged to, a world of gold, silk, and power. But standing there, trembling in the vast hall, she asked herself one question that echoed louder than all the royal drums. Would love be enough to hold on to a child born to destiny? Or had fate already decided she must lose her forever? The palace was alive with whispers. The drums of the royal court had summoned the elders, the priests, and the council of wise men. A child had been brought before them, a child carrying a mark that no ordinary child should bear. The mark of the crown. Amina stood in the grand hall, her bare feet pressed against polished marble she had never dared to dream of touching. Her torn shawl, faded and patched 100 times, looked out of place among robes of silk and gold. She clutched the baby tightly, as if the entire world were trying to pry her away. The high priest stepped forward, his staff striking the ground with authority. He bent over the child, lifting her gently into his arms. His voice trembled as he spoke. "This is no ordinary child. Look closer, my king, my queen. The prophecy of the birthmark has been fulfilled. This is your daughter, the princess lost to treachery." The hall erupted with gasps. Women covered their mouths. Men bowed low. Guards struck their spears against the ground in salute. Amina felt the baby slipping from her grasp as the queen rushed forward. For a moment, her heart broke in silence. She had carried this child on her back through hunger, through shame, through nights so cold that her own body heat was the child's only blanket. And now, she was being taken from her arms. Tears blurred her vision as the queen clutched the baby to her chest, weeping with joy. The king's voice boomed across the chamber. "My daughter lives. The blood of our line has not been extinguished." The celebration spread through the palace, but in the corner, Amina stood forgotten. Or so she thought. The king, tall and grave, descended from his throne. His steps echoed as the hall grew silent. He stopped before the poor village girl who dared to protect his bloodline. His voice softened. "Young woman, you had nothing. Yet you gave everything. When others mocked you, you chose love. When others turned away, you carried my daughter on your back. You are not cursed, Amina. You are the girl with the richest heart." The words struck her like a drumbeat. For the first time in her life, she was not mocked, not scorned, not pitied, but honored. The king ordered, "From this day, you will never hunger again. My daughter's life is forever bound to yours. The palace is your home, if you will have it." Amina could barely speak. She bowed low, tears streaming down her face, whispering only one word: "Thank you." The drums of the palace echoed across the kingdom that morning. Messengers on horseback galloped through villages, shouting the news no one thought they would ever hear. The lost princess has been found. In the small marketplace, women dropped their calabashes in shock. Men froze mid-sentence. And the villagers, the same ones who once mocked Amina for being poor, who laughed when she carried a baby that was not her own, now bowed their heads in shame. Because now they knew, the girl they had called cursed was the very one destiny had chosen to protect a future queen. B-roll, villagers whispering, some hiding their faces, others rushing to the palace gates just to see her. Inside the palace, Amina's world shifted. No longer did she wake to the sound of empty stomach growling, or to the cruel laughter of neighbors. Instead, she rose in soft chambers, sunlight spilling through silk curtains. Yet, her heart was heavy, because though she was now surrounded by gold, fine food, and guards at every corner, she kept glancing toward the child, her child, the princess she had fed with scraps, carried through the night, and sucked to sleep when no one else was there. Would the palace now take the baby completely away? Would Amina once again be left alone? The queen, sensing her fear, reached out. She lifted Amina's chin gently and said, "You did not just save a princess. You saved a kingdom. You will not be forgotten." The king himself placed a royal necklace around Amina's neck, a gift reserved only for those who had shown the kingdom the greatest courage. He declared before his court, "This girl, born with nothing, gave us back everything. She is not a servant. She is not an outsider. She is the sister of the princes, and the daughter of this kingdom." From that day, Amina was protected. She was given education, tutors, and the chance to live not as a beggar mocked in the streets, but as someone whose story would be told for generations. And yet, she never lost her heart. She never forgot the days of hunger, or the tears shed in the cold nights. And so, she walked among the poor, still giving, still helping, reminding them, "I too was once like you." Narrator closing voice, soft, emotional, lingering. Amina thought she was saving a child. But in truth, the child saved her. The child lifted her from the dust, and turned her sorrow into honor. And perhaps, that is how destiny works. Sometimes, it hides not in riches or palaces, but in the cries of the helpless. And those who dare to listen, find themselves written into a story greater than their own. B-roll, Amina smiling as she walks through the village, children running after her, villagers bowing respectfully, the princess clinging to her hand as the palace gates close behind them, no longer separating her from love, but protecting it forever. What do you think? Was Amina chosen by fate, or was it her heart that made her a hero? She began as the girl the village mocked, the one with nothing. Yet by choosing love when it was hardest, she held in her arms not just a child, but the very destiny of a kingdom. Sometimes, The greatest treasures are not found in gold or thrones, but in the courage to do what others will not. If Amina's story touched you, share it. Let it echo beyond this screen. Because somewhere, someone needs to hear that even the poorest hands can carry the richest treasures.